All right, Bulls and Bears, back with another dose. BX4 News, back with another dose of economic reality. My name is JJ. You're watching Bull Boom, Bear Bust. Let's go ahead and get into it. First of all, I apologize. It's been a few days. Lots of news to get caught up on. It's a big week ahead of us, folks. We've got earnings from a lot of major retailers coming out. The inflation numbers are going to be coming out again, the latest report on that. And I think you know what's going to be happening with that, but we're going to get into all the behind the numbers situation here and behind the scenes data. Please make sure you are subscribed. Let's go ahead and get started right here. Oh, first of all, happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And I've got a Mother's Day story I want to share here after we cover a lot of this news here and just kind of a personal thing that happened to me for Mother's Day and celebrating and setting up things for Mother's Day here. So it has to do with the economy, the cost of living, and more. So stay tuned for that. But first, we continue to see tariff-driven price increases. Remember, a lot of people said no, it wasn't going to affect the consumer. It was going to be passed on to the shippers, the suppliers, the manufacturers, that they were going to absorb it. We saw talking discussions between the U.S. and different countries, even retailers here in the U.S. like Target and Walmart were amongst the retailers that were trying to get the manufacturers to lower their costs so they wouldn't have to pass along the prices to the consumers. Well, it looks like that has failed, and we're seeing higher prices already. We just talked about automobiles in our last report. Prices, the big price increase month over month that we've seen in over a year. All right, so prices jumping back up for cars. Will the same happen for homes, for everything else, the cost of living? Or will there be some other cheap areas that's going to offset some of this, like the price of oil going lower? We're not feeling the savings here in California. Gas price is still the lowest I've seen. It's about $4.25 a gallon here in California. So not feeling much relief out here. So still having to hustle as far as most people here in California. And I'm still hustling. I'm still working multiple streams of income, so to speak, here when it comes to like having a regular job, YouTube, investing, making things online. I've talked about all my side hustles here before. So having a family in California is not any joke, folks. And the Mother's Day topic, we're going to talk about that here and what just happened to me today on Mother's Day here. But first, let's get into these numbers here. And this is a continuation of our last housing report that we did. Was it 2 or maybe 3 reports ago? And what we're seeing is home prices continuing to soften, and inventory levels are up now at about a 5-year high. And what we're seeing is even more pronounced in Washington, D.C., as we saw a lot of the layoffs start to impact home sellers there and how many more people put their homes on the market in D.C. And now D.C. has just seen the biggest jump ever in home listings. And this is going to continue, folks, as more federal jobs continue to be shed. This is going to be big, folks. And could be one of the deflationary things that might offset some of the inflation that we're going to see from the tariffs, right? But the deflationary things that we're likely to see are going to be people losing their jobs and less money sent out into the economy with all the cuts that we're seeing, the budget cuts, the agencies being cut, different programs being cut, for food programs and you name it. I mean, hundreds of thousands of different programs being cut. But this is going to ripple through the economy and affect the poor people the most. Now, these people in D.C. that, are seeing their home values start to drop because inventory is climbing. The biggest jump ever as sellers accept lower and all-cash offers amid the layoffs. So these people can afford it, right? D.C. is a very affluent area, obviously. But will they remain affluent? Will they remain in the top 10% when this is all over? That's yet to be seen. Active home listings in D.C. jumped 25% in April, the largest gain on record. Will this set off a domino effect across the country, or is this going to be localized because a lot of these layoffs are federal jobs, right? It's yet to be seen. I don't think it's going to set off a domino effect, but I do think there's other things that are going to be happening that are going to cause further weakness in the housing market. The question is, what kind of programs will they come in to keep a floor under prices, right? Will there be more freezes like we saw in 2020 through 2024? Will they try to put a floor under prices to keep the economy looking like it's doing good? What's going to happen as far as the response to the crisis? We know there's a crisis, and we know there's a worsening crisis. It's going to get worse, but the response is what has the biggest factor on where prices go and how the costs are affected. But back to these numbers here in the DC area. Numbers being reported out of Redfin. The DC suburbs are also impacted. Alexandria, Virginia, Montgomery County, Maryland, and Loudoun County, Virginia. Active listings jumped 40%, 38%, and 36%. So those are areas to keep an eye on as far as the housing prices, right? We're going to keep an eye on the housing bubble here for you. But let's move on to this. Right, and this has to do with your energy bill, namely automobile prices. And actually this ties in with home too, because we have this big push for solar and then of course electric vehicles. America's largest grid operator warns of summer power shortages. Remember, we were told that people moving to electric vehicles, and it's close to 1 in 10 vehicles now are electric, I heard, in California. I'd have to look up the rest of the nation, but it's big. It's a big part of the overall fleet of vehicles that we see across the nation now. But every year we continue to see warnings of grid failures, grids being strained, not enough power to supply all the people. You may see shortages. And that's on top of all the shutdowns, because they shut down areas when there's fire risk here in California and a couple other states. When America's largest power grid operator warns of growing risks of summer power shortages, people pay attention, especially now after witnessing Spain's brief brush with the collapse over there when its grid triggered the worst blackout in a generation. So we're seeing these so-called programs and systems put in place that are supposed to help things, right? We're supposed to not use so much energy with the green push and the solar and the electric vehicles. But what we see, it's actually things are getting worse. The outages are getting worse. The grids are more strained. Prices are going up. We were told again that using less of the grid electricity, more people going to solar and etc., are going to cause prices to go down. But it hasn't happened, folks. Prices are still going up. So everything that we've heard and we're told that was a cure or a fix or going to be helpful has done just the opposite, right? The costs keep going up. Same thing with vehicles here, to kind of tie this into the larger picture. We were told that all these new gadgets, safety devices on vehicles, sensors, lane change sensors, brake warnings when an object is detected, all these radar sensors, different security systems, all the cameras, of course, the proximity sensors, all these devices, all these gadgets, electronic components in vehicles. We're told that's going to help make things cheaper because there's going to be less crashes because it's so much more safe now. All the warnings and mechanisms are going to make less crashes happen. Well, the crashes that are happening, the vehicles twice as much, 3 times as much now to repair, because instead of just getting a bumper, you have to get a bumper that's filled up with these sensors and electronics, and it costs a lot more, not just the parts, but the labor to know how to hook up all these things and test them. And it's almost like a master electrician degree now just to be someone working in a body shop. It's crazy what I've been hearing. And now add on top of this, the parts that are mostly imported are going to be more expensive, folks. So the cost of vehicle repairs, the cost of insurance is going to continue to go up. Again, I don't see overall inflation going down. I should say this. I should say I don't see the cost of things going down. The rate of inflation, meaning how fast prices are rising, may slow. So the way they're going to report that is they're going to say, look, we won the war on inflation. Inflation's going down. That just means prices are going up more slowly. That's not any sort of victory, all right? That just means it's less worse than before, but it's certainly not better. And in this case, I don't think we're gonna see prices go down. And again, I could be wrong. This is my analysis, just looking at the big picture here, folks. When you look at the cost of things, the import tariff situation now added on top of that, all the other inflationary things that are still in effect here. We've got an administration right now that's just looting, massive gains for themselves and their family. Have you seen the gains that the ones in power right now are making on their personal portfolios? It's insane, folks. They're putting out meme coins and stuff, making billions of dollars, pumping the price up, selling off at the top. The price crashes. I heard that over 90% of the people that invested in that particular digital asset lost money while the ones that got in first, mostly the billionaires, got out and made billions of dollars, folks. It's simply insane what's happening right now. And as we've talked about here a few times, the reports that come out and the surveys that come out about the U.S. consumer, the sentiment, it is very low right now. Every one that we see, we look at about 3 different ones. The one that comes out of Michigan, of course, the Fed one, all plunging to multi-decade lows. And people are feeling the pinch right now, and they're worried about their future more than ever. So now more than ever is the time to be diligent about keeping up with this information, investing wisely, so you can keep up with the cost of living, which is probably not going to come down, as far as I can see. Minus a catastrophic widespread type of outage, or system gets compromised or something like that, taken down, right, or taken over, or just a complete outage, right? That would be something that would basically finally start to bring things down, which would be a cure, but it would come at a very high cost, because when the whole grid goes down, folks, you have people scrambling, and it gets dangerous very, very quickly when the grid goes down, because nobody can buy anything, because everybody's reliant on swiping their credit cards. Nobody has anything for barter or trade, except maybe a few people that may grow things in their backyard or have a bunch of canned goods stocked up. But other than that, that would be very dangerous. But that would be the only thing to bring down the cost of living at this point, folks, because there's so many inflationary programs out there right now, mechanisms to keep prices pumped up, right? But let me tell you about what happened today on Mother's Day. Today I was going to make a very easy day for my wife, right? I was going to actually make breakfast myself, and I ended up doing it. But first I was going to go to a restaurant chain that we've all heard of. It starts with a D, and they're famous for their breakfast, the Grand Slam breakfast. I'll just say it, it's Denny's. For a Grand Slam breakfast with French toast, folks, $17.50. And when I first walked in there, I was going to do a takeout order. They had a sign that said we still have an egg surcharge because of the egg shortage. That's another thing. We were told egg prices were going to come down drastically. We're still about minimum $4 a dozen here in California. So that hasn't happened. $17.50, folks, for a Grand Slam French toast, what they call the French toast slam. So I ended up I said, I'm just going to go to the store. Went to the store, got all the stuff I needed to make the breakfast for a much lower price. And made all the food. And I really appreciate what mothers do. I mean, I cook sometimes and grill and all those things, but being responsible for a family and having to make all the food myself, it's not just making the food, right? It doesn't seem like that much. Oh, you made a meal, big deal, and not that much work. Folks, it's a lot of work between going to the store, preparation, making it, serving it, everything else. But then a lot of people that don't do this, if they just let the mother of the house do it, or your mom or whoever, it's a lot of work to clean up. Right? Cleaning up, putting stuff away, the grease in the pans, you have to clean it a certain way to get the grease out. And so the whole thing is like a multi-hour process just for one meal. And after a couple hours on my feet, everything else running around, coming home, making the food, fixing everything, putting it away, cleaning up, multiple hours on the feet, I was like, wow, my feet are hurting. Is this what mothers go through every day? Not that I don't do any cooking. I know that it's work, but today just made me realize cooking for the whole family, trying to take all the work away from my wife, made me realize how much work it really is, right? So shout out to all the mothers out there and everything that you do. Even if it's not working a 9-to-5 job or getting an income, it's still a lot of work. Being a mother, being a parent's a lot of work, but specifically a mother. And, shout out to all the single parents out there. There could be fathers doing all the work of what the mother used to do, and vice versa. There could be a mother doing all the work that the mother and father was supposed to do, because we have so many single parent households now. We see a ton of that now, especially here over the past 10, 20 years. That's really prevalent here. But anyway, happy Mother's Day to everybody. That was my experience. And the cost of breakfast, even at Denny's, which is supposed to be a lower cost place to go eat, was crazy and outrageous. All right, folks, so this week we're going to be looking at new inflation numbers, earnings from multiple different retailers, some big box retailers included. So keep an eye on this here, folks. Stocks could jump up if there's a trade deal reached, especially with China. So that's something big to keep an eye on. You might be looking at a good investment opportunity here. because we're starting to see the markets go up even with trade deals not being reached. Right? We see a pretty big recovery in the stock market since the big sell-off that we saw once the tariff news started getting out. And imagine what's going to happen now if there is a trade deal reached with China or even many other countries. It could be new all-time highs again in the stock market, right? So again, we have to keep an eye on all this stuff here. There's also a lot of things saying that the stock market has peaked, and a lot of the money that was being pushed into the stock market is now being pulled away because of all the budget cuts and different programs that are being cut, that I think a lot of that money ended up in the stock market, right? So it's a lot to digest, a lot to stay on top of, but stay tuned here on this channel. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you here. Let me know what you think about all this down in the comments, and happy Mother's Day. What did you see on Mother's Day if you went out and did some shopping? Did you see high prices like I did? Did you do it yourself? Is it a lot of work? Am I wrong about any of this? Let me know down in the comments. Let me know down in the comments, everybody. Bye for now. Keep stacking. Peace.